Hello everyone out there on the internet today. So hopefully you're watching this video because you are out there right now either wanting to learn how to build an app that has messaging capabilities like Twitch, or you are new to building full stack applications and want to learn by building a cool project. Well, I'm here for both of those scenarios. By the end of this tutorial, you will have an app that will allow you to message with multiple people that you invite to join the app itself. That's right, you will be able to send the link to your deployed app to your friends, get them to sign up to the app and message them directly in the platform itself with a cool interface that looks like this. For this tutorial, we are going to be learning how to do authentication, work with cookies, and work with SDKs such as the Stream SDK right here that will help us spin up messaging apps fast and handle all of our users. This tutorial is going to be a really long one as there really is a lot to learn and will take about 3 hours to complete. But don't worry, I will break everything down for you section by section in the description below for you to easily come back to it at any point in time. So, first off, we will be building the UI of the app itself. This will include the chat section as well as a screen for us to sign up and log in, as well as an option to log out. Once we have done that, we will move on to building a backend so that it can handle all of our requests to our Stream server. By this, I mean I want to be able to save new users to the Stream server, but also retrieve data when we log back into our newly created apps, as well as handle authentication. This part will also require to have a deep dive into cookies and why we need them when working with authentication. Okay? So a lot to get through in this video. The only prerequisites that I ask of you are to have a basic understanding of the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and Node before getting started. But as always, if you're feeling up to it, please do have a go at coding along anyway. So, what are we waiting for? Let's do it. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and just sign up to GetStream. GetStream is essentially a scalable and fast API for building social networks, activity feeds, activity streams, and chat apps. But that is the simplistic explanation. We are going to be using everything that GetStream has to offer in order to build a chat app fast, including its out-of-the-box styled components for React, thanks to the Components SDK and UI kits. So let's go ahead and just click try for free and get started by filling this out. I've of course already done this, so this is what the dashboard should look like. Here you'll have your secret key, your app ID, and your app key. So these are important for later, so just make note of those. And I'm just going to go straight to the dashboard. So here we are on our dashboard. You will see a key and you will also see a secret that we can click to reveal. Okay, so these are things that we are going to need for our app, including the app ID. And this app is essentially where we are going to store all our users. Okay, so this is where we're going to store all our users. We will also be using this information to connect our client to this platform. And if we then go into the app, so let's go into the app and your demo, you will see we can store information about our chat app or our feeds app if we wish. We are going to be building a chat app and we are actually going to be building a gaming channel type. So we are going to be using an existing channel type from this list here. We can also go ahead and add other channel types, but I'm happy with this one, so just keep that in mind. Great. So that is now pretty much done. We have created an account on GetStream. This is essentially where we're going to store all our users. So let's get connected to it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is use the Components SDK for GetStream in order to spin up our chat app fast. So this is what the GetStream SDK looks like. Let's go back to GetStream. And if we go down here, this is where you will get all the information to build our chat app. Okay, so for example, if we go into Chat SDK tutorials right here, you will see all the components that are available to us. And all we have to do is use the SDK component library in order to get started. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's just go through the documentation. So the first thing we're going to have to do is install Stream Chat and Stream Chat React in order to get using all these UI components that come with GetStream. So I'm going to just spin up my app. I'm going to get my WebStorm up. And in here, I'm just going to create a new project. This is going to be a React project. And I'm just going to choose to call this Twitch, like so. And then this is going to spin up a React app for me using the npx create React app command. If you have not come across that command before, or you're not using WebStorm, this is essentially the command and where you can read more about it. And this is what will spin up just a template React app for you. So once again, if you are not using WebStorm, what I would do is just go into your directory of choice. So for example, we can go in development, and then I would use the command, and then whatever you want to call your project, let's say Twitch, I would run that command in the directory of my choice. However, I'm not going to do it this way. I just wanted to show you that you can do it that way too. I'm going to use WebStorm to do this. So let's go ahead and click create, and there goes my app. So there we go. You will see the React app is now being spun up. And there we go. Happy hacking. So the first thing now that I'm going to do is look in here to check if that has worked. And I can see the node modules are in here. I can also see all the files that have been generated for me. I don't need all of these, but let's just go ahead and spin this up. So there are two ways I can do this. I can do this in here. So for example, I can just create a new tab like so. The terminal, and making sure I am in the directory called Twitch, I can use npm run start, which is a script in my package JSON in order to spin up this app. So that will spin up the app. Or if you are using WebStorm like I am, we don't need to do this. We can just go ahead and click here. And that will spin up our app on localhost 3000. Okay, so we don't need this anymore. And wonderful. There we go. I'm just also going to get my inspect tool up. And wonderful. So we can now see a little bit more of what's going on. If I go back in here, just to show you that this is working, if I now save this, so let's change it to Ania, and just click save, you will see that that is changing. Great. So this is looking good to me. Let's carry on. So just back in here. Now I'm just going to minimize this, and first off, let's just do some cleanup. Let's get rid of any file that we don't need. We don't actually need all of this, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. I also don't like using semicolons, and we don't need this CSS file because I'm just going to have one CSS file. This isn't a huge project, so I'm going to save that. And now let's get rid of the test file, so setup tests. Let's get rid of report web vitals 2. I'm just going to delete these. We don't need a logo anymore. So I'm literally just going to delete all these. Okay. Delete anyway. We're not going to use this app test.js file either. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and delete. And let's get rid of this app CSS file as well. So just deleting all of these. Great. And then finally, delete all of this. Keep the app component, keep this index CSS file, and keep these imports like so. Wonderful. So now that we have done a little bit of spring cleaning, let's carry on. So the first thing we said is that we need to install the Stream Chat and Stream Chat React in order to get using all the UI components, okay, that come with GetStream. So I'm just going to copy this, and once again, making sure that I am in the directory Twitch, so whatever we call this app, I'm just going to paste that and install that. So these two packages, once they have been installed, will show up right here under the dependencies. So right under the dependencies here, and we're just going to check to make sure the version that I am using is the same as your version. Because if it's not, this might cause some issues further down the line. So I would strongly suggest changing it to the version that shows up here. And there we go. You will see that Stream Chat has been installed as a dependencies, and so has Stream Chat React. So now let's carry on. I'm just going to minimize that for now. So let's go back to our app.js file and let's get to using some UI components. So I'm just going to carry on with getting started. Now, as you will see here, the instructions are pretty good. So here to make my first chat app, it is saying that I need the chat component, and I'm also going to pass through whatever my client is. I'm also going to pass through a channel component, and the channel that we want to use, in this case, it is gaming, as we saw here. This is the type of channel I want. Then we're going to use a window component that GetStream has created for us, a channel header, a message list, a message input, and a window. Okay, so we could just grab that and put it in. So if I go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and copy this. And click copy. And I'm just going to paste it in here. So just override that. And that is now a functional component. And then we have a few more things to do. We need to define the client, we need to define the channel, but of course we also need to import the packages. That's right, otherwise these components will not work. They are from those packages, okay? So all I'm gonna do is essentially import Stream Chat, so Stream Chat from Stream Chat, thank you very much, and import all of these from Stream Chat React. Okay, so all of these are the chat, the channel, the window, all of those essentially. So I'm just going to do that quickly for you. Just like so. So we haven't actually used this Stream Chat yet, but it's worth putting that in there for now. Great. So this is nearly done. The next thing, as I said, we need to do is define our client and channel. So to define our client, well, let's look back in here, and I'm sure this will tell us. So to create a chat client, we are going to have to use our API key. So let's go ahead and use that. I'm going to copy this and just whack that in there. So we've already imported Stream Chat, so that is working. We are getting Stream Chat, and that comes with the method of get instance. And for this to be defined, we need to pass through our API key. So let's go and get that. I'm going to go back in the chat overview and then just go back to my actual app itself, because I did show you where this lives. So let's go back to the dashboard actually. And then we need to get this key right here. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm just going to replace this with our API key. So now we have our client defined. That has got rid of the red squiggly lines. We now have our client. Let's get to getting our channel. So once again, let's go back to the documentation and let's create a channel. So first, let's do this. I know it says that we also need to connect a user, so we will do that, but let's just do things by the way we are talking through them. So let's copy all of this. And I'm just going to paste that here. So there is just a general channel. However, I know that my channel, I want it to be the gaming channel. So I'm just going to replace this with gaming. And then what I'm going to pass through is, let's give it a name. So I'm going to choose to call this gaming demo. The members, well, I know that the members of this are, we can keep Dave Matthews for now and Trey Anastasia, that is fine. And then let's also we can have an image. I'm not going to on this occasion just because I don't really have any images to hand. And the last thing that I need to do is just get rid of this because I don't want any more options in here. So we just started a channel, it's a gaming channel, and I passed through some members like this for now. It won't be like this forever, but just to get going, that's what I've done. Okay, great. And finally, what we are going to have to do is also connect a user. So for now, I'm just going to use Dave Matthews as my user. We will be replacing this with whatever user that we sign up with. But of course, for now, we are just going to have some dummy data. And all I'm going to do is whack it in here and talk you through it. Okay, so once again, we are using the definition of client here, and that will come with the method connect user, and we are going to pass through a username, which is Dave Matthews, with an ID and also our user token. So to get our user token, once again, let's go ahead and go in here. And I'm just going to click here for tokens and authentication. And we are just going to use a fake token for now, because once again, we are just getting used to this and how it works. Okay, because our token will essentially be generated for us when we create a client, where we create a user in our app, but we haven't done that yet. So I'm simply going to put in a secret. So there is my secret that's actually been generated from here. And the next thing I need to do is put in my user ID. So my user ID is Dave Matthews. Just put that in here. So this is my generated token that I can use in order to communicate with my app now. So I'm just going to go back in here and paste it like so. Okay, great. So now that I've talked you through those 3 things, so how to get a client, how to then connect a user to the client, and how to also use the client to start a new channel, which in this case is a gaming channel, let's carry on. So thankfully, Stream Chat has actually done all the work for us in terms of setting up all these 3 things. So I'm just simply going to scroll right to the bottom and use the UI components and the client instantiation and the user connection that we just learned in this code. So let's go ahead and copy all of this, which has been done for us, along with the async await, so all the promises that need to be resolved in order for this to work correctly. So again, I'm just copying this. Thank you so much to Get Stream for doing all the heavy lifting for us. I am going to need to keep the generated token though, so perhaps let's not be too hasty with this. The things we are going to need to keep are this right here. So I'm just going to maybe move that above here, because that's something we will be needing. And also this generated token, we'll be needing that. And let's just remember that gaming is an option we want to pass through. So now let's copy all of this code. I'm just going to move up here so you can see it. And I'm just going to replace all of this with the code we just copied. So paste it like so. And once again, I'm just going to get rid of the semicolons because I don't need them anymore. So far, this does seem like a tutorial on reading documentation, but I think that's important. Otherwise, you'd be like, where's this component from? I don't understand. This is literally what I'm doing. I'm just going through the documentation and taking their setup code from there. I think that's quite a useful lesson too. So now that we've copy pasted that code, you will see it's pretty much exactly the same as what I did before. We are getting stream chat that we are importing from the package we have just installed. We're also getting all of these components from stream chat React. We are also, however, this time importing some styling to style the components, okay? And that comes with stream chat CSS. We might have to install something for this, but let's see. And now let's replace that API key just like we did before. So I'm just going to grab this X and replace that here. This is looking fine. Let's keep Dave Matthews for now, but let's also get the generated token that we saved. And once again, just put our token right here. That's been generated for us thanks to the ID Dave Matthews. And wonderful. We have one last thing to do, and that is define our channel. So right here, I'm going to go channel, just like we had before. And where should we define our channel now? Let's do it here. So const channel equals await client channel. And once again, let's just pass through gaming and pass through gaming demo. Name is going to be gaming demo. And then I'm just going to set this channel actually to state so we can use it later. Making sure we have the same type of quotation marks. So set channel, and I'm going to pass through the channel we have just defined. So if you know how to use state, I have just said that I want to set the channel. So whatever I say channel is, I'm going to say set channel is going to change this value. And I'm just going to say that to start off, the state of this is going to be null. Okay. So in this use effect, I'm defining the channel. It's a gaming channel. And then I'm setting the channel to be used in the state. So now by using this, I'm setting this value, and you can use channel to essentially pass it through in here. Great. So this is looking good. And there we go. So there is our gaming demo chat. This is looking pretty cool. Okay, if you are getting any errors, maybe do try restart your app. Double check that this is what you see here. And this long thing right here is generated by using the user's ID and this secret right here. And then you go into tokens and auth and you generate one manually by putting in your secret here. So once again, this thing from here and the user ID. Cool. So hopefully that is making sense. You will see that gaming demo, so whatever we call the channel, is showing up here as well. And of course, we are the only user. Dave Matthews is the only user. So if I type like this, Dave, so D for Dave Matthews, has written a message. Great. So hopefully that makes sense. We're done. No, I'm only joking. We've only just started. So hopefully now you see how we are utilizing all of the cool UI components to make this right here. We can also, by the way, attach images to send or emojis. It doesn't have to be just text. So the world really is our oyster. Again, if you want to attach an image, that will be sent too. Cool. So this is step one. Hopefully I've explained that well enough. Of course, there is so much documentation here that you can really, go to town. You can definitely go to town on the personalization, the theme, everything. So if we really want, I'm going to show you how to do this. We can make it dark mode. So to make it dark mode, all I would have to do is just pass through dark mode true onto the chat itself. So for example, I just have to do this. So I would just go in here and on the chat, I'm going to do dark mode and then pass through true. Just save that. Let's go back. And we are now in dark mode. We can also do custom styles. So for example, if I want to do a custom style, I would get rid of this, okay? And then instead of that, I would do custom styles like that. That's how you have to spell it. And then pass through whatever I want to call my custom style. Let's call it custom style and let's define it. So I can define it right here, custom style equals, and for this, I would actually have to do it in the same format as they have done here. So custom styles. And if we just take the dark mode, for example, so custom styles, and then go into CSS and theming, you can override the themes by simply doing something like this. So let's just take this for now. I'm just going to show you how to do it. So that would override my custom style. And there we go. You will see now it's green, it's a bit bigger and so on. So that is just one option for you. For now, I'm just going to keep it as dark mode true. But again, perhaps I can change this later if I wish. Wonderful. So again, so much to do. If you want to check out the CSS and theming, please go ahead and do that. Great. Okay, so now that we have done that, let's move on to part two. And part two will be us, instead of, hard coding Dave Matthews, I want to be able to have someone sign up to use our app and their name show up here instead of Dave Matthews. So for this, I'm actually going to build an auth component. So let's go ahead and do that next. So in the source directory, I'm just going to create a new directory and let's call it components. Oops. Components. And I'm just going to create another JavaScript file and let's call this auth.js and just click enter. So great. This is essentially the box that I want to show up with my inputs of, when we're signing up to the app, or perhaps we're trying to log back in. So for this, once again, let's just get the boilerplate set up. So const auth equals, and then let's return a div for now. So just not really returning much. Or we can, let's just go ahead and return a div like so. And let's do export default. Great. So in here, for now, I'm just going to write auth so we can see it. And we've exported it. And where do we want to use it? Well, we probably want to use it in the app itself. So let's go in here and just perhaps where we are importing all the components. I'm also going to import this, our own component that we have made. So not from Stream Chat React. import auth from, and then let's go into our components directory and just get the auth component. So just like that, and let's get to using it. So for now, I'm actually just going to return. So perhaps let's make some empty elements like so, some wrapping elements. And I'm actually just going to return the auth component. So just like that. Please ignore the formatting. We will fix this all later. I don't want to focus on the wrong things for now. So there's our auth component. If I look in here, you will see the auth component here. And I essentially want the auth component to show up if we are, authenticated, if we have an auth token. And if we don't, well, then I don't want to show it. So for now, because we don't have an auth token, we haven't actually, done any authentication yet, I'm going to fake it. So just under here, I think, let's say const auth token equals true. So we're pretending we have an auth token, okay, that we have generated and is allowing us to see this. So if we don't have an auth token, so no auth token, we want to see the auth page, right? We want to see the page that tells us to sign up or log in. So no auth token, show that. But if we do have an auth token, then show the chat, the whole chat, just like so. We can actually perhaps tidy this up a little bit, but for now, I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So now, because our auth token is true, it's showing us the chat. However, if we turn auth token to false because we don't have one, it will show us the auth component. Great. So this is looking good. While I'm here, I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit. As I said, we've got the channel list. We actually don't need a channel list. We're not going to have that in our app. We just want the chat really, and then the channel. And then we need to put this all in a messaging container, as this is all to do with messaging and we will message each other and the channel header and stuff. So what I'm going to do is actually make another component called messaging container, like so. So yeah, messaging container. And in it, we're going to put all of these things, including the thread. So we're going to cut those, and then let's make a component. So file, new JavaScript file, and messaging container. There we go. So just do that and let's define it. So const messaging container. So let's make a functional component, export default, messaging container. And then let's return everything we cut out. So all these, and it needs to be in a wrapping div or wrapping element for now. There we go. But of course, we are not yet done. WebStorm has done this for me, but we need to import all of these components from Stream Chat React again. Okay, so there we go. And I'm just going to perhaps format this a little bit too. So there we go. File, reformat file. Great. And just save that. And let's go back to the app. And we can now get rid of these as we are not using them, as you see. So wonderful. We have just got rid of those. And of course, we need to import this messaging container. So at the moment, it says messaging container. So let's do that up here. Import messaging container from Once again, the components directory, messaging container. Okay, so that's just so this is a little bit tidier, to be honest, but also because I want to put a video in here. So just before we move on, I'm just going to change this back to true so we can see what is going on. Okay, so at the moment, this whole thing has stretched, right? That's because we got rid of the channel lists. We don't want that anymore. So now we just have the chat taking up the whole space in our browser. And in the chat is the channel. So this essentially is the channel with our message container. And the message container includes all of this, including the place to type your messages. Great. So now I can also put another component here, which is essentially going to be a video. And this video is what's going to be playing next to our chat. For now, I'm not going to do much for it. So once again, let's go into our components. Let's make a new JavaScript file. I'm just going to call it video like so. And for now, like I said, I'm literally not going to do much to this because this will be something that I'm going to do last. Export default video. For now, I'm just going to return one div that is going to have the class of video display that I will style just so we can make it take up some space on our app. So let's give this class name video. Yeah, video container. I think that should be fine. Maybe video display. I mean, it's completely up to you. So let's copy this and in the CSS file, let's do .video container. And for now, I'm just going to do 50% and let's import it as well. So import video from, well, we had it there, but let's just get it back. Components, video. Great. And on the messaging container, let's also actually change this to a div and give it the class name of messaging container. And in here, let's also perhaps give it the width of 50% for now. So this is looking good. However, our video container does appear to be up there. So let's also give it a height of 100%. And put this in the channel. And wonderful. So that's looking better. Okay, make sure that the messaging container and the video are in the channel. Okay, the whole channel wraps the video and the messaging container. Great. So now that we have the basic setup of this done visually, let's go back to creating our auth component. So once again, just so we can see it, I'm going to change this back to false. And here we go. Here is our auth component. Now my auth component, I just want it to essentially be some inputs that I'm going to style up now. So let's get to the div layout first. So once again, here is our wrapping div. And in here, well, I'm actually perhaps going to give this a class name of, you guessed it, auth container. So auth container, just like that, just so we can style it up a little bit. And we're going to have the container, and inside I want to have essentially a box that's going to hold it all together. So let's give this another class name. Let's go with auth container box. Let's be very literal about it so we know what's going on. And inside the box is where I want to have my form. So I'm actually going to use a div for this. I'm not going to use the form element, but you know, you can if you want. It's just because I think this will just make our lives easier, and I don't want this to be about styling. And let's call this auth container form. And in the form, well, we want to have an input. Okay, so our first input, let's make it self-closing. Our first input, we need to, let's give it the type text, and this is going to be for our username. So the first input, when we are, let's say, signing up to something, we're going to have something to put our username, and then our potential password, and like a confirmed password. So all of these three things are going to be text. Let's give this the ID of username though. Username. For good measure, let's also just give this the name. Username. Placeholder, we can give it a placeholder if we want, and I will. I'm going to say username, and we're going to have an on change. So I'm just going to put on change because I essentially want to update the value of this input and save it to state. So this is how you do it. I'm going to use set username, just like so, and use target value. So whatever we are typing in the input, we're going to get its value, and we're going to save it to state using set username. So just under here, I'm going to go const username, set username, and then use state. So we're going to have to import use state, and let's start off with this being null. So import use state from the package React. Okay, make sure that says username. So all I am doing is using set username, and I'm passing through the value of whatever we are writing in the input, and then I'm using it to set this new value here. Okay, but we're starting off with the state being null. So to start off with, username is null. So if I console log username, let's go ahead and do that, like so. And look in here, I'm just going to get my console log out. You'll see null because username is null, but as soon as I start typing, it will change because we are changing the state. We are changing the user name. Cool. Okay, great. So we've done one input, and we are essentially going to use this to create a bunch more inputs. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste that. So we've got a username. The next thing we want to save is the password. So name, password, and then placeholder, which we have. That's just our password. Password. And this time, instead of set username, set password. So I'm just going to copy this line. So we're saving the username. Let's also save the password. And this has to say set password. So once again, if we console log out the password, well, you guessed it, that will change when we put stuff into the input. And one more, we're going to have a password check just to confirm the password is the same. So text password, ID password. Let's do password check, password check. This one, let's have confirm password, because password check, people might not know what that means. Confirm password, and set password, set confirm password, set confirm password. Okay, so that is looking good. And once again, let's just do that here. Set confirm password, and then confirm password. Okay, so we're getting all these things. This is looking Good. I'm not going to bother console logging that one out. Hopefully you get the idea. Okay. So now let's actually also have a button. So I think the button should just say, yeah, it should just say go. So let's make a button go, like so. And what I want to happen is that on a click of the button, I want to handle a submit, okay? So I want to handle whatever happens when we click the button. So let's go ahead and define that up here. Let's do that by, yeah, let's do it up here right after we do that. Const handle submit. And what I want to do is essentially when we submit something, we want to send the user to our platform, right? Because we just registered a user. But first off, so at the moment, I'm just going to write console log submitted. Okay, so submitted, woo! But first off, we need to check that these two passwords are the same, right? Because that's something that often gets done. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So on the handle submit, if the password that we have written does not equal the confirm password, well then we just want to return. But we can also show an error. So perhaps let's do set error as true. And once again, let's save the error to state. So const error set error. And then we'll start off with error being false. So set error const. Okay, so we're using set error to set the error. And if an error exists, well, I just want to show some text that, says make sure the passwords match. But now that you know how to do this, you can, like set all different types of errors. So I just wanted to show you a quick way to do this. So make sure passwords match. Okay, so that is how you could show an error. So let's check it out. So if I go Anya, and then my password here is 123, but then I go 123, whoops, I slipped, it's a 4, go. Ooh, make sure the passwords match. Okay, so that is working, and then we're also getting submitted console logged. So I would have to then change this to make that work. And then we can also, set the error to be false again. So that is something that you can do. So the first things first, let's actually, I don't know what we should focus on first. Perhaps maybe let's also do a sign up page. So this is all for when something is login, right? But we also want to show something when we are signing up. So let's perhaps do that up here too. So const is login, set is login, and use state. Let's choose to go with true. So as a default, you're going to be sent to the login page, okay? Not the sign up page, the login page. That's what I have decided right here. And for both, we need the username and the password. However, we don't need the password check for if we're signed in. So I'm going to wrap this if is not login. If we are on the sign up page, then we need to show this. But if it's the login page, we don't need to show this. So that's what I've done. I've just wrapped that around as we don't need to show this. Okay. And let's go ahead and perhaps add the other buttons. So let's check this out. Okay, so at the moment we're on the login page, that is the default one. However, if we want to sign up, then the third one will show up too. That's all I've done, okay? And we can change this value with a button, or 2 buttons to be exact. We can toggle set login. We can toggle is login with these 2 buttons. So for this, I'm actually going to make another div, and these are going to be the auth options. Class name, auth options, like so. And in here, I'm also going to make a button that's going to say sign up, and another button that says login. And then we can choose whether to go to the login page or the sign up page. It's going to be completely up to us. Okay, so if we click the button that says sign up, so on click, just like so, well, we want to set is login to false, okay, because we want to go to the sign up page. This is looking good. And if we click on the other one, we set login to true. Oops, didn't. That needs to be in here, of course. Okay, so now we can toggle it. Sign up, there's 3. Login, there's only 2. Sign up, login, sign up, login. Cool. Great. Now, before we move on to actually sending over some data to GetStream, to the app we built on GetStream, let's quickly just do some styling. So this is not going to take very long. Let's just get the auth container, like so. Let's also get the auth container box. And the auth container form. And again, this is going to be so simple. I really don't want this to be about styling. I don't think I ever really want it to be about styling. So all I'm going to do is actually just help you out with this, because I've pre-made this. The auth container, that is the styling I'm going to give it. Please feel free to copy that if you wish. Please pause if it makes your life easier. The auth container box, again, that is the styling that I want to give it. And the auth container form is going to have this. Okay, so if you want to have a look, oops, what have I done? Ah, that's right. This is the sort of scheme that I'm going to go for. Okay, so there we go. We just got a little tiny box. I'm also going to style the inputs. So what I'm going to do is go get the form, and any inputs that live in that form are going to have the following styling. So once again, I'm just going to change the font size and give it some padding and margin, so that's a bit bigger. And let's also do the button. So the div that wraps the 2 buttons is called auth options, and I'm just going to style it by giving it display flex and a flex direction, so they're sort of next to each other, like so. And once again, let's grab the auth options, and any buttons that exist, so button elements that exist in here, are going to have the following styling. So I'm just going to grab some styling I've previously done and just assign it. Again, please feel free to pause here if you want to make a note of this. I understand that, you know, this does take a while, but I don't want to focus on the styling, as I said. Okay, great. Now, One last thing I'm going to do is just give some styling to this button. I'm just going to have like a standard styling for the buttons. So let's perhaps grab the button, or perhaps let's maybe make it a bit more precise because I don't know where else I'm going to use buttons. Standard button is the class I'm going to give it. And once again, so you don't have to watch me write out some styling, I'm going to give it to the background color of purple with white text, no border, and an increased font size. And if I hover over the standard buttons, I'm just going to grab that standard button class and just use hover like so. If I hover over it, I'm just going to change the background color to be a little bit darker. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to grab this class and I'm going to apply it to this button right here. So class name equals standard button. And then we seem to have got rid of the on click. Let's put that back in there. And wonderful. Okay, so there we go. That is looking better. Now I'm just going to add some styling to these so that we can see which one we've clicked on, because at the moment it's not very clear. I want to black one out a little bit if it's not the one we have clicked on. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So right on these buttons here, I'm just going to add some styling directly from here that is changed by the is logged in variable. So perhaps actually let's space this out a bit so it's a little bit more readable. We've got the on click, and next I'm going to get the style like so, and background color. I'm actually going to define the background color by is login. So if we are not logged in for this one, I want to show the color, which is essentially this background color of the whole box itself. So let's go back and put that here. Otherwise, I want to show this alternative. So actually that's the box one, this is the background one. That's my bad. So that's what I want to do. I'm using this to figure out, so if it's not logged in, and that's true, I want that background color to be applied. Otherwise, apply this one. And I'm just going to copy all of this and do the same for the second one. But this time, if we are logged in. Great. So that's looking better. Sign up. Okay, so sign up is now darker because we are logging in. There's only two. And if I want to sign up, that changes. Okay, so cool, this is looking good. And if we hover, that goes darker. I'm really liking how this is looking. We are now done with the styling, the auth. We're actually done with pretty much everything client-based. Now let's move on to building out our mini backend and actually adding users to our app, retrieving users, storing hashed passwords, and so on. So let's do it. So to do this, I'm actually going to create a mini backend. We don't really need to, worry too much about this. If you want, you could put this in a client directory and then have a server directory. But I think for this small app, it's a bit overkill. So I'm simply going to have my server as one file. I'm going to do it on the same level as the package JSON. So new file, and let's call this, we can call it server.js if we want. You can call it whatever you wish. Perhaps let's just call it index.js for now. And I'm just going to show you the alternative of what you could do. You could, so let's just do it on the same level. Make a new directory and call this client. Like so, and then put in everything that you see into the client. Again, this is an option. You could have just stuck with, having the one index.js file, but I think it's nice to show people how to do different things. So obviously this is going to take a while because I'm moving files. WebStorm is sort of helping me out and just making sure that everything moves correctly. So that is really useful. So everything is now in here, the node modules, the public directory, the source directory, which we have created a components directory in on our app, and this index.js file that we made, which I'm now going to delete because we don't need it, because that was going to be our server. But now I've decided that I'm going to make a new directory, file new directory, and call this server instead. So there we go, just make sure that it's on the same level as the client. So we've got our client, we now have our server. So in the server, I'm going to create a new file. And this is where our index.js file is going to live. So this just means that whoever's looking at our project knows that we have a client side and a server side, and this is a full stack app. And in our server, well, what we're going to do is instantiate it. So I'm going to stop everything from running just to make everything a little bit easier. So just stop anything from running. And in here, so we are now in the directory Twitch. To start our server, let's go into our server directory that we have just made. Okay, so we are now in our server. I'm going to run npm init. So make sure to have obviously npm installed onto your laptop. And I'm just going to go through all of these: package name, server, version, description, entry point, test command, key repository, keywords, everything, just enter, enter, enter. And that should essentially spin up a package.json file for us. Okay, so this is a separate package.json file to the one in the client here. Okay, the two things are now completely separate. So there we go. So just make sure to have npm configured onto your computers. It's essentially the thing that will allow us to make use of all the amazing packages that we can find here on the npm directory. So now that we have that done, we of course need to install a few things to start our backend, as well as write a script to start it. So I'm going to tell you which ones we need for this. So the things that we are going to be using to start our backend are, so I'm just going to get my terminal up, making sure that I am in the server directory. We're going to have to install a package called bcrypt. Bcrypt is essentially a password hashing function. It will allow us to take a password. So imagine your password is 123, and use a cryptographic algorithm that derives one or more secret keys from that password. So we're going to be using this package to hash our passwords so that they are stored in a secret form. However, it is also worth mentioning that we can use methods available with the bcrypt package to also unhash the hash password under the hood. So to check that our passwords are a match without ever seeing the password itself. Okay, so that is one package we're going to need. We're also going to need the package UUID. And the package UUID actually stands for a universally unique identifier. A UUID is simply a 128-bit value, and this meaning of each bit is defined by any of several variants. For human readable display, many systems use a canonical format using hexadecimal text with inserted hyphen characters. For example, it could look like this. Okay, so here is the UUI package, so the UUID package that we are going to install. Along with this, we are going to use some stream packages. So I'm going to have to use stream chat as well as get stream. We will go into these a little bit later, as well as .env, so that we can store our secrets safely in our project. So there we go. Those are the packages that we need. We are also going to use Express to do some routing. Once again, if you haven't used Express before, this is the perfect place to start. I will not be doing a deep dive into this, so hopefully you know a little bit about it, but I will be going through the basics. And finally, we need cores as well. cause is essentially a package that will allow us to override cross-origin response sharing. So you might get restricted messages when it comes to, dealing with the back end and the front end. You will see it as, blocked by cause or something. So this is the way to override those messages. I will be showing you this error message so that if you ever see it, cause is the way, this package is the way to essentially solve that error message. I will show you how to do this step by step. One more is a package called Nodemon that will essentially listen out to any changes on our backend. So once you have all of these, just click enter and wait for those to install. Once again, if you're having any issues, just make sure to use the versions that I am using here. You can simply do so by deleting a number and replacing it like so, okay? And then just running npmi again to install all these dependencies right here, along with these versions of them. Okay, I'm not going to do so for now because I'm happy with these versions. Great. So we have our dependencies. Now let's write a script to start our backend. So let's go ahead and do this here. I'm going to write a script under start so that if we run npm run start, perhaps let's make it really obvious, start backend. This will essentially run the commands nodemon, so the package that we just installed, index.js. So we're going to be listening out for any changes made on the index.js file and just click save. Okay, so there we go. We are now done with our package JSON. Let's get to some simple boilerplate. So I want my backend to run on port, let's say port 8000. So I've just defined that. And now let's get the package express. So require express like so. We're also going to have to use express. So I've just got the package and I've called the package. So I've used the package in this file and now called it express. Now to use the package and all of its wonderfulness, I need to essentially just call it. So I've called the package, all of its wonderfulness is exploded so we can use this in the file, and I'm gonna save it as the word app. So now whenever I want to use express's wonderfulness, I just use app. So express, now known as app, comes with stuff like use or listen. So let's use listen to listen out for changes made on port 8000. So I'm going to use that and I'm just going to pass through. So listen out for the port and console log server running on port 8000. So we can see a message to know that everything is working okay. So this is looking good. Now in my terminal, I'm literally going to write npm run start backend and click enter. And there we go, a server running on port 8000. And it will listen out to any changes thanks to the Nodemon package that we installed. So this is looking good. Our backend is running. Now in another tab, I'm gonna have to restart my front end, okay? Because we stopped it, we moved everything around. So now let's go into the client. So make sure we're in the Twitch directory because that is our project. But now we need to go into the client and I need to use the package JSON, so the script that we wrote here to start my app again. So I'm just gonna change it to start front end, just so everyone is sure which script is for which, even though it should be obvious because we are in the directories, it sometimes can be missed. So I've just changed this to start front end. So now let's go into the client and let's do npm run start front. Spell it right, maybe front end, and click enter. And that will spin up our app again. Okay, so there we go. That's spinning up our app again. Just make sure if you are having any issues, the index.js file that you deleted, make sure that is not in the source directory. Make sure you delete the file that we created that was blank, that was meant to be our server, okay? Because without this file, this will not work. So once again, make sure you deleted the correct index.js file, and it was the one in the root of the client, the one that we created that was meant to be our server. So great. Again, if you're ever in doubt, just refer to the code in the description below. Okay, wonderful. So we've got our front end running in here. We also have our back end running here. Let's carry on. So once again, I'm just going to minimize the client. Let's go into our server and carry on writing in our index.js file. So the first thing we are going to do is have to make a post request for when we sign up. Okay, so that is the first thing I want to do. So I'm going to use app post, and when I make a post request from the front end to /sign up, so localhost 8000 /sign up, well, I want this to be an async callback function, and I'm just going to pass through request and response like so. And I'm going to use try and catch. And I'm going to catch any errors. And in the try, I want to essentially get whatever the username and password that are being passed through are. So for now, I'm going to just try to do that, username, password, and I'm going to pass them through with my request body. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do. This is step one of checking this is working. User name, console log, username, password. Great. And if there's any errors, I'm just going to console log the errors that we caught, like so. And then also maybe let's return status 500. And then the JSON is just going to be the error message. So there we go. We're going to do message and then show the error too. Okay. So let's check if this is working. We are going to pass through the username and the password with the body of the post request. So that should be step one. So let's go back into our client and then into the auth. Just going to minimize this for now. And on the handle submit, so right under where we check if the passwords don't match. So that is all part of the if statement. So I'm just going to do it down here. We are going to do an Axios post. So we're going to have to import Axios into here as well. And we're going to post to HTTP localhost 8000. I've used backticks as we are going to manipulate this string later on. 8000 /sign up. Okay, so that's what we're making a post request to. And then we're also going to pass through a username and password. Okay. And I'm actually going to need to get the response of this. So const response. So I'm going to wait for that to resolve. And I did say that we need to import Axios. So import Axios from Axios, which means we also need to import this package in the front end. So this is the front end. Let's go ahead and just make a new tab, go into the client and install the package Axios, npmi Axios, just like so. Okay, so that is now done. We also need to make sure this is an async function, otherwise await will not work. And once we have the response, for now, I'm actually just going to console log the response on the front end too. Okay, great. So let's try this out on the front end. Let's put test, password test. So that's our username and our password when we are signing up. Let's make sure the password is the same and click go. Okay, here's the error message. So from origin, it has been blocked by cause policy, so we know what to do. Let's go back in here and actually use the package that we imported in order to get around this. So for this, I'm going to get cause, so const cause equals require cause, and now we're going to have to pass it through into the app. So app use cause and call cause. Okay, so there we go. While I'm here, I'm also going to use app use express JSON. And I think that should be it that we need in order to work with JSON correctly and to override cause. So there we go. Let's try again. Go. So that is submitted. And now if we look here and look in the backend, so let's get rid of that now. There's our front end, there's our backend. You will see the username and the password are showing up. So we are passing it through with the request body. We're passing through the username and the password. If I actually console log out the whole request, so let's go back in here and let's do something else now. Go. This is actually the whole request. So obviously here we are consoling out the username and password, so that is showing up here. But if I look in here and then we find the request body, you will see the username and password are being passed through like so. Okay, so there we go. And of course here they are destruction. So great, hopefully that makes sense. If not, I do have some tutorials on this that perhaps go into this in a little bit more detail. So great, we are passing through the username and the password from the front end to our back end. Now let's actually send them to the GetStream platform, but we need to hash the password. So to do this, I'm going to use bcrypt. So once again, let's actually get the package in here. Const bcrypt equals require bcrypt. And under here, I'm going to actually let's save this as hashed password. bcrypt.hash, and then we're going to pass through the password that we're passing through here, and we're also going to pass through a 10, and I'm also just going to wait for this to resolve. So here's our hashed password. Another thing that we actually need to pass through in order for this to work is a unique user ID. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the package that we imported for this, const, and we're going to do this v1 UUID v1 require UUID. And I'm writing it this way because if we go to the UUID package, that's just what it's telling us to do. So I can use this right here, or I can use a timestamped UUID, which is UUID version 1. So I'm going to choose to use UUID version 1, and this is how you would write it. So import it and use it. So that's all I've really done. So let's go ahead and now use UUID version 1. And let's save this as const user ID and just call it. So it really is that easy. This is just the time-based UUID. So we've got a user ID, we've got a hashed password. Now from the documentation, I know that I need to connect to my GetStream platform, and I can do so with connect, which we are going to install from GetStream. So once again up here, const connect, and that is from the package that we installed called GetStream. Okay, so this works by passing through, well, we have to pass through our API key in here. We also have to pass through our API secrets. We have to pass through all three things that I mentioned at the very beginning. And we also have to pass through our app ID. Okay, so these three things are things that I need to pass through, and that will essentially return a client. So I'm going to I've saved this as client. So now let's get our app key. For now, I'm just going to actually save these up here, but we will be putting them in a env file, but this is just going to make our lives that little bit easier for now. API secret and API ID. So const API app ID, API secret. So let's go back in here. Let's copy our API key as a string. Let's also get our secret. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm also going to copy our app ID, which is actually this right here. So make sure to not forget that one there as well. One. There we go. So those are the three things that we need to connect to the platform that we were just on. And finally, I'm going to use now this client that we have just created on the line above. To create a user token. So we no longer need to hard code Dave Matthews or whatever. We're gonna make our own token by passing through this user ID. And let's save this as token, just like so. Great. So now, for now, I'm just going to show this REST status 200, and the JSON that I want returned so that we can use it, so we can return it back in our front end, is just going to be the username, the password, the user ID, the hashed password, and the token. Okay, great. So now what I am saying is that when I make a post request to this URL and pass through the username and password, what I want returned back to me in the response is all of this. So the username, the password, but also now the user ID that I generated and the hash password and the token. So we can use it in our client. So let's check it out. Let's do it. Once again, let's do something else this time. This time I'm going to do Ania, and my password is going to be 123, 123. I'm going to click go. And the response does indeed return back my username, Ania, my user ID, which was generated, my token, which was generated, my password, and also now my hashed password. Yay! Amazing. So we're getting all this in our front end now. This is great. Okay. So we are getting this information to the front end. The next thing we need to do is store this in cookies so that we can populate our channel with it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that now. So for this, we are going to have to use another package. So make sure you're in the front end again. So go into the front end. And then this time I'm going to install a package called React Cookie, which will allow us to use a cookie provider on the whole app. So we can use cookies throughout it. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for that to install. And on the index.js file in the client, so make sure you're in the right place, I'm going to import cookies provider from React Cookie. Okay, and this is great as we're literally going to wrap our entire app in the cookie provider, meaning that we can use cookies throughout it. It's really that simple. Like, it's so super easy and so super great. So just wrap the app in the cookie provider, just like so. So cookies provider, making sure that's a closing tag. And now we can use cookies wherever. So on the auth page, I'm going to, once again, import use cookies. This time, not cookie provider, from React Cookie. And use cookies works like this. So just above here, I'm going to get const cookies, set cookie. So it seems sort of similar so far to use state, but it is not. It's just, you know, written in a sort of hook format. And I'm going to use remove cookie as well. So there's 3 of them this time. And this time I'm going to use cookie. So it's a hook. And just pass it through user for now, just like so. This is from the documentation, by the way. I did not make this up. If you Google the documentation for React Cookie, it'll tell you to put this in your code. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to use set cookie to set some cookies. So I'm going to use set cookie, and then you have to use a capital for some reason. That's just what the documentation does. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go into the response. So whatever the response was here, let's go ahead and click go. And I'm going to get the response data username. Okay, I'm going to set that as a cookie. So let's do it. Let's get the response data username and set that as the cookie under name. I'm actually going to copy a bunch of these because it's essentially the same thing. We're going to do the same for the hash password, and the token. Okay, we're just going to store all of them in there. So hashed password, again, let's make this a capital. So hashed password. The next one was the user ID. So user ID. And let's make this a capital. So user ID. And then let's get the auth token. We don't really need the password, so I'm not going to bother with that one. Auth token. And then let's get the response data token, which makes me think we don't really need to be passing it to the front end here. So perhaps let's not bother doing that, because then people might be able to, you know, see it or whatever if they, for some reason, console log out the response. So I don't think we need it. Let's carry on. Hopefully we're not mistaken. Okay, so there we go. We are setting all of these cookies, and let's check it out. So now, if I refresh this and I sign up and I go Anya, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and click go. There's our data. And if we now check out the application, cookies, there we go. The hash password is now saved here. So auth token, name, user ID, and hashed password. So we're storing everything here. This is looking good. And this means that now if we refresh the page and change this to, be logged in so we see the channel, that should still be here. So let's go ahead and do that. So once this is done on submit, I'm just going to get the window and I'm going to reload it like so. Location, reload. Now, if you notice here, we have an auth token, which means, let's go back to our app. Instead of hard coding this, I'm actually going to use cookies auth token. So I'm going to use the one that we generated, auth token, make sure that's in capital. And once again, I'm just going to essentially take this whole line, put it in here so we can use the cookies on this page too, and import use cookies from React cookie. So just up here. We don't need these anymore. We are not using those. So let's delete those. And great. This is looking good. So now that we have the auth token, this should essentially be the deciding factor of what we see. So let's check it out. And wonderful. So we're now on here and we have the username, Anya, that we used to sign in here. So instead of having, so right now we are still Dave Matters, C, D for Dave. We need to change this to Anya. So again, on the app page, we're going to have to do this in here. So now we're going to go into cookies again, cookies, and this time we're going to use the user ID to change that ID, and we're going to change the name to be cookies name, like so. We're also going to pass through the hashed password, so we can save this in our app. So cookies hashed password. Great. And now here we can also just use the auth token, right? Because auth token is cookies auth token. We have defined it up here. Now, sometimes you might still get a blank page. If that does happen, just always revert back to the last changes. So for example, revert back to this, and click save, and the app should reappear. Okay. So that is just a tip. If you are finding a white page and you don't really understand what is going on, we are dealing with cookies and it can be a bit temperamental, but that's just what I do. So I'm just gonna put everything back to where it was now. So there we go. And wonderful. Okay. So the cookies are all being set. And if we look on the app, we're going to then use those cookies in order to set up a client. Okay, but we only want to do this if the auth token exists. Okay, so that's set up the client if the auth token exists. And once again, it's not liking something here. So let's just revert back for now to what we had before. Click save. Okay, so that is looking fine. redo, redo, redo. I might as well just probably copy and paste this. It's always better to hard code things, of course, because, you know, we don't have to worry about things not existing, I guess, at certain points in time. So if, only if the auth token exists, then we set up the client. I don't think we need set client ready anymore, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And we don't need it here either. We don't need that here, like so. I'm actually just going to change this around a little bit because I want to actually take this whole function and move it outside of the use effect. So for now, I'm just going to comment out the use effect and just have the function be called if auth token exists. Okay. Wonderful. So there we go. We of course already have this here. I'm just going to do it again though. Let's see if this makes a difference. Go. Okay, no, it doesn't because we already have these here. So I'm just going to delete these. Okay, so now let's sign up. And here, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, go. And great. So our all tokens being stored, our hashed passwords being stored, our user ID and our name, and that is being passed through into the app, which means we are now signed in. Anya 3 is now signed in. And if we also look in here, so I'm going to go into the app and look at chat and look at Explorer, you will see under users. So there I am. I've just been created. Anya 3 has just been created. We pass through the hashed password and the user ID, the UUID is how I'm identifying users now. So wonderful. We have added a new user. Of course, this is the original user we had. This is Dave Matthews. We have now created a new user by signing up to the platform. Phew. Great. So this is all the stuff that we are sending over. The final thing that I want to do before showing all our users in the app is to work on the sign up. So in here, what I'm going to do is also make a route how to log in. So go to our server for this. So here's our sign up. Now let's do a... So in here, once again, I am just going to use app post. And this time, if we go to login, well, I'm also going to make this an async function and pass through a request and a response. And this time, let's try, and then let's also catch the errors. So catch error. And I'm just going to console log the error. Okay, so there we go. I'm console logging the error. And then once again, I'm just gonna show that. So using the response of JSON 500, because 500 is for errors, and the message error. And in here, well, what do I wanna do this time? Well, once again, we're gonna have to get the username and password. But this time we're gonna check if the username actually exists and the password is correct. So to do this, once again, I'm going to have to use the client. Just going to paste that. And this time, I'm going to get to use the... I'm going to have to make a chat client. So let's go ahead and do that. For this, I need to use stream chat. So I don't think that's one that we imported in here. No, we did not. So let's go ahead and do that. Const stream chat. equals, and the stream chat, well, that is from the package stream chat. And I'm just gonna do that once again. This is from the documentation. I'm not making this up. So we're gonna get the stream chat now. And using get instance, I'm gonna pass through the API key and the API secret. And let's store this as the, well, we're actually gonna have to destructure this because we wanna get the users out of our app. This is how you would do it. Okay, so this is how you get all the users from our app, by passing through our API key and our secret. And once we have that, actually, this isn't correct. Let's save this as chat client because we're gonna have to use the chat client to get our users. So chat client. And now let's await the chat client. Okay, and then let's actually query the users. So we don't want all the users. Let's query the users by the username. Okay, so let's pass that through, and then let's put all the users with that username that we have queried. So just like so. However, if no users come back, so there's no users length, then we just want to return res JSON 400 JSON message user does not exist. Okay, so that's what we want to do. And then also we need to check if the passwords match. So for this, I'm going to use something that comes with bcrypt, and that is compare. And all I'm going to do is pass through our password. So the password that we pass through from the front end to the real password, and we're going to check it with the user's stored hashed password. Okay. So we're going to go into the users array, get the first user, and then get the hashed password. Okay, because hopefully there should, only be one username that is unique. Of course, that is something that you might have to work on, perhaps preventing, like multiple usernames from being the same. But that is essentially what we are doing. And then let's save this as success. Okay. Great. And then let's also await this like so. So if there is a success, well, if success, I'm gonna get the res JSON, and it's gonna be a 200 response. And then we're just going to return back the token that has been generated. So we're gonna have to generate token that comes with the user. So once again, we're going to have to go into the users array, get the first user, and return back its user ID. I believe that's it. Let's have a look. So in here, I know it's just the ID. And then with that ID, let's actually let's create a new token. So I'm going to grab the client, and with it, there's something called create user token. Okay, and then we'll pass through that ID. So this is now our token, const token. Okay, so that's sort of similar to what we were doing before. We're just creating a new user token based off this ID right here. Great. And now let's also go into the users And this time, let's get the name. I believe that's the name. That's right, name. So we're gonna get that. And let's save this as const confirmed name, because this is the correct name from our user. So there we go. We're generating a token based off the user ID. We're getting the confirmed name. We're getting success messages if the two passwords match. And we're also going to get the user ID of the user itself. We're just getting all the information we can, really. So let's go into the users, and then let's also get the ID. Okay, so that's loads of information. And if we get a success message, so if both the passwords match, if the password matches the hashed password, then we will return back the token, and we'll also return back the username, which is the confirmed username, confirmed name. And let's also return back the ID so that we can use this in our front end. So I think that's all we really need, right? We need a token, we need the name, and we use the user ID in order to create a client. So that is looking good. And then if there's any errors, or actually let's do else. Or actually maybe we could just catch the errors, because essentially, no, we need an if else here. Okay, res status. We'll make it a 500. I think that's right. 500 res JSON. And then let's just put message login failed for whatever reason. Okay. So that is what happens when we log in. We check if the password we are passing through from the front end matches the hashed password of the user. And if it does, we'll return back a token, the username that we have confirmed. So we're going into our database and checking the confirmed username and the user ID. Great. So this is looking good. Let's go back in here, and instead of writing another handle submit, I'm just going to switch out where this goes. So on the handle submit, well, instead of just handle submit, if we are logged in, so I'm going to pass through, if we are logged in, then I want to pass through login. Or if we are not logged in, I want to pass through sign up. Okay, so if we're on the login page, I want to pass through login. Or if we're on the sign up, otherwise I want to pass through the string sign up. So that is what's being passed through into the handle submit. So what should we call this? Let's call it endpoint. So if, once again, I'm just going to replace it here. So that's why I did backticks, because now I can just go straight to the endpoint. So there we go. So we're using, once again, if we are logged in, then this should go to the login page, or if login is false, then this should go to the sign up page. And actually, we only need to check this if we are not on the login page. So if we are on the sign up page. Okay. Okay, so this is looking good. So now we'll go to different endpoints based on whatever the state of the page is. So in other words, if we are on the sign up page, I'm just going to delete these tokens again, actually. Refresh. So we're passing through the endpoint. Just going to console log out the endpoint. Sign up, Ania, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, go. Sign up, okay. sign up not found. Oh, that's because it says Signup. So that is really good for us to know. Sign up. And click save. So let's try again. Ania 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and go. Okay, so we are now signed in. We should also make a log out page while we are here, otherwise we just have to be deleting a lot of stuff. So to log out, well, actually I'm going to do this on the messaging container. So right in here, and let's write a function to log out. So just in here, I'm going to say const log out equals, and this time I'm going to remove all the cookies. So I'm just going to take this line once again and put it in the messaging container, and I'm also going to import use cookies from React Cookies. So that's already been done for me. That is good, thank you. And I'm just going to remove cookie. I'm going to remove cookie, and I'm going to go remove the cookie name, which is cookies name, making that a capital, and just remove all the cookies just like we added them here. So I'm just going to copy all of that, and this time instead of set cookie, I'm going to remove cookie. So remove cookie, remove cookie, remove cookie. And now let's actually connect this to a button. So I'm simply going to make a button here. Let's give it the class name of standard button that we made previously. Log out and on click. I'm just going to log out. Okay, so that should make our lives that little bit easier. Let's check it out. Response is not defined. Aha, yes, that's because we don't need response. We just need the cookies. 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 So this is now a capital U, and this is an auth token. Okay. Hashed password. Okay, so now if we go in here and just click log out, we will essentially remove all the cookies. And then we also need to refresh the page. So once again, window, location, reload. For now, I'm just going to reload it manually, and there we go. So this is looking great. Now let's try log in using Ania for password 123 and click go. We can log back into the app. So this is all working, and the relevant things are being stored up here. Great, so log out. Once again, let's try signing up with something else. This time, let's do Danny, password 345, 345, go. And let's try typing something, click send. We get a little D for Danny, and we see that information show up. So great, we have now finished logging in, signing up, working with cookies. Now I want to do one last thing, and that is actually show all these users. So there we go, all these users. So Danny should be one of these, Ania 4 should be one of these, and so on, showing up in our app. Okay, so what I'm gonna do for this is make a user list. So let's go back in here. I'm just going to minimize that. Let's get rid of this. And in my components, I'm actually going to create a new component. So file, new JavaScript file, and let's call this user list, just like so. And let's create a user list component. So const user list, and then I'm just going to export it. So export default user list, and then let's also return back just a div for now. And what do we want our user list to look like? Well, first off, let's actually pass through some users. So let's make this work. Let's go back to the app. And I think we should, or let's perhaps do this in the messaging container, okay? So I'm actually going to import our user list in here. So import user list from user list. We don't need to go into the components directory because we're in it. So here's our user list. And where do we want this? Well, I actually think I want the user list to be above the window. So right here. So let's just do that. And then we're also going to pass through some users in here. But first off, how do we get those users? Well, I'm actually going to do it in the app right here. So let's go back to the app. And I'm going to use our use effect to say that if we have an auth token, so if the auth token exists, I'm going to use await client query users. So query users is something that just comes with the client, and I'm going to filter them by role user. Okay, so I'm just looking in here essentially to look out for anything with the role of user so that we can get it back to us. So await, and let's save this as, well, we're actually going to just destructure the users from it like so. Okay, and once we have them, we're going to save them to state. So set users, and let's pass through the users. Okay, and then of course, let's use state here. So users, set users, and we'll start off with users being null. So use state null. Okay, and once we have the users, well, all I'm going to do is just pass them through into, actually, do we need to make this, I think we need to make this an async function because there's the await. I don't think I know. Okay, so let's pass through our users into the messaging container because that is where our user list lives. So users as a prop, I'm just going to pass that through like so. So now in our message container, well, I'm also going to just destructure the users so I can pass them through into the user list. So a lot of just passing things through at the moment, really. And in our user list, once again, let's destructure the users. And what am I going to do with them? Well, for now, I'm just going to console log them out so we can see what we are working with. So there are our 4 users. There we have them by ID. We also have the hash password and the role, as well as the name. So there we go. So let's use that now to make our list. So all I am actually going to do is in this div, I'm going to, let's actually give this a class name first so we can style it up a little bit. Class name, user list container, maybe. User list container. And now what do we want to map it over? Well, I think let's just make a list item for now. So list item, and that list item is going to have the, let's put a p tag in here, and I'm just going to destructure the user name. Okay, so maybe this makes it easier for us. Okay, let's wrap this in some curly braces because we're going to use the map function. So we're going to get the users, and for each user, so if they exist actually, we're going to map, so once again, use a parenthesis, we're going to map each user onto this list item. So let's give the list item perhaps a key. I'm actually going to wrap this around again because I think it might make it a little bit easier to read. So each list item is going to have a key, which is going to be the user ID because it needs to be unique. And then I'm also going to just pass through the user name. Okay, so I mean, that is really it for now. I'm just making a list of users, and we'll style it up, and we'll also make it, you know, like flip from one to the other. So I just want to see the chat, or I want to see the user list. I'm actually going to import something else, and that is some icons for us to use. So let's get up our terminal, and once again making sure we're in the client. So let's go into the client. I'm going to install React icons. Oops. React icons, and just click enter. And while that's doing its thing, I'm going to actually use them in here. So I'm going to import these items. I'm going to import a horse head, import var horse head, and also var smile from React icons var. Okay, so I've just got those two, and in here I'm also going to say that if the user role equals a user, which it will, but you know, just in case you want to add other things in here, I'm going to return a var horse head. Otherwise, return a var smile. Now, of course, we know that they'll all be users because we've filtered out by users, but this is just showing you what you can do if you wish, and if you want to pass through other things in here too. So great. So now let's have a look. And there we go. There are little horse heads. I'm just going to style up this user list container before we move on. So let's go ahead and do that now in the CSS file on the client. I'm just going to move this down. I'm just going to grab the user list container. And once again, I'm just going to put in some styling that I've previously done, including an overflow while scroll, okay? And then also style each of the list items. So this will just prevent some weird scrolling from happening, okay? In case yours is scrolling in a strange way, then definitely add that. And I'm also going to style each list item in the user list container with some styling that essentially removes the styling. And I'm also going to say that in each user list container list item, the paragraph tag exists, but then I just want to change up its margin and padding, just like so. So that looks more like this. Great. So my user list is now done. Let's get rid of that console log. I have some final styling to do, and that is on the message container. So let's do it. So there is our logout function written. We are setting the cookies. I'm also going to actually import some more icons in here, and that is for flicking between the messaging service and the list. So I'm just going to import var users and var arrow alt circle left. Hope that's okay. Well, we will see. From React icons var. Okay, so we've got these, and let's get to styling this up. So there is our window. I actually want to swap from user list being visible or not visible. So let's do const user list visible and set user list visible. And just keep this as false to start because we want to start off with the messaging service. Okay, so use state. I need to import that. Import use state from React. We don't need to import React in this create React app. And I'm going to use this to wrap our first window. So if there's no user list visible, then I essentially want to show this whole window. I think, yep, that's right, all of this. So with the channel header, but also the message list and the message input. However, and the thread, no, not the thread. If user list is visible, well then I want to show I do want to show the window. So let's show the window. And I do want to show the channel header. So let's get the channel header. However, the channel header, I want this to say something else. I want this to say users. Okay, so once again, we can always clean this up later. I want it to say users. And then I want to show the user list. I don't want to show the user list in here. Okay, so I'm just using some pre-made components from Stream in order to make two different things. And then we'll have the thread here. So I think this should look okay. Okay, so now we just need a button on each of them. So button, okay, we've got a logout button here. I also need a way to flip between either of these things, so I'm going to do it by the icon. So on the var users icon, let's make it self-closing. I want to say that if we click this icon, so on click, I essentially want to, so we need to make this a callback function. I need to set user list visible to be true. And on this one, let's put in the var arrow alt circle left. I'm just going to take all this and say that on a click, I want to set this to be false. Okay, so there we have it. If I click this, it will go to the user list, and if I click that, it will go back. Great. We have a little bit more styling to do just to make everything look good, and we're just going to put in a video, and then we will be done. Okay. So the messaging container, I think that is fine. We've got a button. Let's actually put this in a separate div that we can style up. So I'm just going to wrap all of this. So just the icon and the channel header and the user list. And let's give this class name chat container. Okay, and we will apply some styling to this, as well as, well, let's just grab it for now. So I'm going to grab this chat container. And I'm just going to add the following styling to it. So now let's have a look. Okay, so that is looking a lot better. We still have some things to do, but let's carry on. Okay, so the messaging container itself, I'm actually going to update this a little bit to really make it stretch out. Let's also give these icons a class name of icon. So class name icon, so that we can style them up even further. So that is how I'm going to style the icons so that they're fixed in here. And finally, let's just move this over. So I'm actually going to give the video container a width of 100% instead. Okay, so that everything looks like this. So now there we go. One final thing, I probably want this to stretch all the way down. So I'm just going to do that quickly. So what would that be? That would be the chat container. So let's go find the chat container. Let's also give it a height of 100%. Hopefully that will fix our issue. And wonderful. So this is looking great. I'm really happy with this. Perhaps let's also just give it some, to give the chat container some rounding off. So border radius, I just want the top. So I think at the top is 5 pixels, 0, 0. But I'm probably wrong. We'll fix it if it's not. Okay, so there's the border radius. Oh, and it was. Well, that was very lucky. That was a massive guess. So wonderful, this is looking good. One final thing to do, and that is add the video itself. So I'm just gonna go into the video component and put in a video. So to do this, there is another thing that I want to import, and it's called React Player. So import React Player from React Player. And let's go ahead and do that in here. So npm I React Player, making sure that I am in the client directory, of course. So while that installs, I'm just going to carry on writing here. So we've got the video container, and the other things that I want to return is the React Player itself, which is a component that we are importing. And I'm actually going to give this the class name of video box. The URL for this is going to be, I'm just going to put in actually one of my videos because I can't think of anything else. So there we go. I'm going to make it muted. So muted true. I'm also going to hide the controls. So controls false. Playing, I'm going to say is true. And just give it a width in here of 100 pixels. Even though I don't think we should probably do it in here because we've got the video box class, so maybe we don't bother doing that. Or perhaps maybe we just don't bother styling in here. So width 100%, height 100%. So once again, the styling is not really something that I care about. Please, you know, if you want, really go to town. I'm just trying to give you the basics so you can have your own app that messages just like a Twitch messaging service with authentication, with everything. Okay, so there we go. I mean, this is pretty cool. Come on, like, I'm pretty happy with this. Again, you can add custom styling if you wish to here. I might show you how to do that if you want. Now, as I said, you can add custom styles. So I'm going to show you quickly how to do this. So where on the app you see the dark mode is true, if I want to apply custom styles, I'm actually just going to make another directory in here. So file, new directory. Let's put this in as styles. And in here, I'm going to make another file called custom styles. And in the custom styles, I can essentially use the dark theme that I'm using now. So I'm just going to show you where that lives. That lives here. Okay, so here it is. There's the dark theme. So I'm going to get all of this. However, I'm going to, let's export this, export so we can use it. And I'm just going to call it custom styles. Okay, and I'm going to add two things to here to essentially get rid of the border radius if I wish. I'm not saying you have to do this. And this just means that I can now use my custom styles that I've exported, and I can import it into here so I can use it. Okay, so once again, let's go back to the app, and now let's use custom styles and pass through our custom style that we now need to import up here. So that's already been imported for us, okay? And that will just slightly change how I made this. It's actually going all the way to the top now, so it is slightly different, as you can see. Okay, so that is just something that you can do if you wish. Now that I've made a custom styles folder, it's probably wise to put my styling in here too, and just hit refactor. And wonderful, let's just make sure that that is linked correctly. So where do we import the index CSS file? Well, in here most likely. It will be right here. So we need to go into the styles directory and get the index CSS file. And finally, let's create a .env file in our server, so in the same place as our index.js file in the server, and then put all our secrets in there. Okay, so we're just going to drag them in, and then in this file, every time we use the secret, we're going to use process env in front of it. So just like so, this is it. And great. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you've learned a lot. If there's anything that I can help with, please do leave a comment in the description below. I'll be happy to help you out. And of course, please do refer to the documentation, okay? But this is looking good. And of course, I can type as myself. So right now, I'm just signed in as Tim. And I can log out and I can sign up again as a new user or just log back in. Okay, so thanks very much and bye.